Why would you want to move to like places like Raleigh, Durham, Charlotte? Why would you want to move to North Carolina overall? Is the question. And I could give you the answer. I was born in New York. I've lived in New York my, young life. And then I came down south. Before I came down south, I used to visit for the summers. And, I really wanted to live here with my grandmother, my grandfather, because, I was living in Brooklyn and, we had trains and concrete and no trees or nothing like that, except for like Prospect Park. But other than that, for the most part, it's a concrete jungle. So when I got down south, there was no subways, there was no trains, there was not a lot of traffic. It was trees everywhere. It was beautiful. My grandfather, my grandmother, they stayed in a middle class community called Hope Valley. And several feet away from Hope Valley, you had like, I'm not trying to be racist or anything like that, but you had, white people. And they stayed in mansions, and they had the Hope Valley golf course over there. And it was just a beautiful area. So I got down here, and I started going to school here, and my grandmother remarried. And we had to move out, because we were staying with my grandmother. My grandfather had died. Make a long story short, my grandfather had died, and my grandmother lived in this, the big house that in the black community, black middle class community. My grandmother was lonely, so she said, she asked my mother and I, as well as my sister, do we want to come down south and live with them, or live with her? And I was geeked. I was like, yeah. So we get down here. Grandmother remarried. We had to go to the other side of town, which was we were in Durham, we were in the middle of the West End and the South Side, right? And I experienced all types of stuff, living in that area. And then, fast forward, I graduated from high school. Well, it took me a couple, but that's another story. And I wound up moving to Raleigh. In between that, I moved back and forth to New York. But for the most part, I was, because we're talking about the South, I left, moved to Raleigh, stayed there for a couple years. I went to a HBCU there called St. Augustine's College. After that, I moved to Greensboro. Then from Greensboro, I moved back to Raleigh. And then from Raleigh, I moved to Charlotte. And from Charlotte, I moved to Atlanta. And from Atlanta, I moved back to Charlotte. So I can give you some insight of the Raleigh-Durham area as well as Charlotte. And Greensboro as well. I've lived in these places for years. And I can tell you, I had to retract a video that I did about Raleigh and Durham, because I said it was pretty much nothing to do and it's boring town and blah, 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 blah. Now, taking heed, I'm talking about the early 90s. Yeah, true indeed, Durham and Raleigh Raleigh was a little poppin'. They had Plum Crazy, they had Kamikazes, they had these hip-hop clubs, and you would get to see these artists such as your Busta Rhymes, your Mobb Deep, your Smith & Wesson, I remember standing right next to, Fight from a Tribe Called Quest, and Big Daddy Kane was over there by the bar, and Das Effects was hanging out over there by the DJ. So you would get to see these rappers that you saw in videos come visit, Raleigh and perform at clubs such as Plum Crazy and Kamikazes. But the whole thing is that the Durham and the Raleigh that I remember is not the Durham and Raleigh that people are telling me now. It's not the Durham and Raleigh that I see, far as when I go on YouTube and I start looking at, their aerial view. They got drones and they're recording, downtown Durham and downtown Raleigh. It's a totally different place. And in these areas, as well as Charlotte. Charlotte is like Manhattan to Raleigh and Durham. You know what I'm saying? So these places such as your Raleigh or Durham and Chapel Hill, I can't necessarily talk about Greensboro because I have a very biased opinion about Greensboro because I experienced a lot of racism there. The two places that I've experienced some of the worst racism is Greensboro and Atlanta. So I really don't want to talk about Greensboro. The cop cars are black, all black. The police officer's uniform is all black. Could you imagine driving down the street as a minority late at night? And you can't see them like that. And they definitely wrote racial profile in Greensboro. Now, on a lighter note, these places have made a 180. They're not, Durham and Raleigh are not the places that I remember. Now there are things to do. Now you can go to downtown Durham and party and walk around, and it's a very eclectic area. That wasn't like that when I was living in Durham. If a person said, yo, I'm going downtown to party, I'm like, where? Durham? Are you crazy? There's nothing down there. What are you talking about? The only thing that's down there is Woolworths. But now I've seen that it's changed. So all of these northerners that's migrating here, I'm telling you, the choices that you have made in far as your pickings on where you want to live at, these are great places to live. The reason why is because there's so much potential in these places. I mean, I know I've left out Charlotte, but I think I've talked about Charlotte like a lot, as you can see on my channel. Charlotte is what it is. It is the Manhattan of the state of North Carolina. Excuse me, it's the Manhattan of North Carolina. Let me put it that way. I'm sorry. That's what it is. And Raleigh would be Queens. And Durham would be Brooklyn. Durham would be the more cultural, side. If you're looking for culture, that's what Durham will give you. A little rugged, but yet and still, it's gonna give you that culture. You're gonna be able to live in lavish houses. You're gonna be able to, party in lavish clubs and restaurants and hotels and stuff like that. Raleigh is that city that's kind of like bougie like. It is what it is. It's kind of like that bougie city, And Charlotte is the Manhattan of North Carolina. It's gonna give you, if you're looking for a city like that, right? Like city life, you're gonna get in all three areas. You know what I'm saying? You're gonna get in the RDU area, Raleigh, Durham. You're gonna research Triangle Park. I mean, you got the triangle, which is Raleigh, Durham, and Chapel Hill. You're gonna get that. But here in Charlotte, you're definitely gonna get that times 10. You look at the metro area in Charlotte, it's roughly 3 million people that's here. When you look at the, Raleigh area, you got about 500,000. I think Durham is roughly between 300 to 400,000. Their metro area, including, Cary, which is the suburb of Raleigh, Durham, Raleigh, and Chapel Hills is like 1.5 million people. So these areas that I used to live in, and they were backwards. I mean, country. With the exception of Raleigh always had that somewhat city-like life. And Charlotte, I remember when I first came to Charlotte, they were building the Carolina Panthers stadium. And the Charlotte Hornets played at the Bojangles Stadium. Now, they were in Uptown. In the Spectrum Center, that center that you see right now. So these cities that you see, they're upcoming. They're like, and they're the best kept secret because everybody seems to be migrating to Atlanta, Houston, Dallas, Miami. But people are overlooking these smaller cities and just overall the state of North Carolina. Like, yo, I remember, because I stayed in Orlando for a little while, you know what I'm saying? Just a short little something. I remember when I told people like, yo, I live in North Carolina, whatever. They were like, yo, that's not the South. Even Atlanta, they're like, that's not the South. The South to the Southerners is from South Carolina on down. So North Carolina is gonna give you, just depends. Now, I'm not talking about the rural areas. But North Carolina is gonna give you, and I'm talking about like the cities like Durham, Raleigh, not so much Chapel Hill, because Chapel Hill is really like a college city. You know what I'm saying? Like Greensboro as well. North Carolina A&T is there. You have UNC Greensboro. You have Bennett College, which is an all-girls school that's right across the street from North Carolina A&T. Both for North Carolina A&T and Bennett is HBCU schools. So cities like Greensboro and Chapel Hill, when the students are out, it's over. It's over. In other words, there's nothing to do. It's boring. But when you have places like Raleigh, Durham, and Charlotte, you have things to do no matter what, no matter if the college students let out. I mean, just think about it like this. So you're living in Raleigh, right? Say, for example, you want to go see a professional football game. You get on the Carolinian, I think that's what it's called. The Carolinian, it takes you from Raleigh straight up to Charlotte. You go see the game, you get back on the train, come back down, go home. You want to see a Charlotte Hornets game, you could do the same thing. They got the professional hockey team that's there, called the Carolina Hurricanes, that's in Raleigh. Most people commute. They got the RTP, I forgot what it's called, RTP Transit, that'll take you from, downtown Durham to the airport, downtown Durham to Raleigh, downtown Durham. I think one goes as far as Cary, if I'm not mistaken. So everything is kind of like connected, is what I'm saying. If you're a sports fanatic, you have in the Research Triangle, the RDU area, you have in Durham, Duke, in Raleigh, North Carolina State, in Chapel Hill, UNC. So like, I was kind of rough on Raleigh and Durham, and I've changed my position, because everything that North Carolina, because I'm a grown man now, and that's how I'm looking at things through that lens. Whereas I was a young adult, and I was like, I was keen on going back to New York. That's what I was focused on. But now, the country down south is actually now turning into like real cities with opportunity and just a beautiful landscape, a beautiful atmosphere, because New York is so cluttered, New Jersey is so cluttered, Philly is so cluttered. You come down here, you're gonna live in a decent house. You come down here, you're gonna be able to breathe nice, fresh, clean air. We got trees and grass everywhere. And it's not to knock New York, because I have a deep love for New York. I was born there. Father, I don't even think he's leaving. My great uncle just died in Tompkins Projects. He never left the projects. There's some people that are just true to the game when it comes to New York. Well, there are others that will sit back and say, man, I want more for myself. And I get that. I get that when you come down here and you come, like, say, for example, you come chill with me overnight and you're like, I'm kind of, cold. I'm like, all right, I'll turn on the air conditioning. I turn on the heat. And you're like, turn on the heat? You control the heat? In other words, what I'm saying, like, for a lot of people in New York, having central air and heat is an amenity. Coming down here and having a good job, you're gonna get more bang for your buck. So, yeah, man, the state of North Carolina, in specific, cities like Charlotte, cities like Raleigh, cities like Durham, is gonna give you that city feel. And you're gonna have a decent life here. The public school system in Raleigh is great. Charlotte is not so great. You got Carowinds that's located in, Charlotte and North Carolina, that's located in Charlotte and South Carolina. You have the Asheville Mountains. You have, the list goes on. You have Asheboro Zoo. You have Wet and Wallace in Greensboro. You have Morrisville, our Morrisville, because they got Morrisville around Raleigh, but our Morrisville in Huntersville, in that area, Lake Norman, you got Lake Wiley in Charlotte. You just got so many things to do just in Charlotte and Raleigh and Durham, to the point where you could just go back from city to city to city to city. And they're not too far from one another. Charlotte, to get to Charlotte, from Charlotte to Durham is about 2.5, and from Charlotte to Raleigh is about close to 3. So yeah, man, if you chose to look at this area, you can't beat it. You got Research Triangle Park that's gonna get you those jobs that you've been looking for, those high price jobs. They have like pharmaceutical companies there, LabCorp, I think. You have North Carolina. You have AT&T. You have a bunch of corporations that's right there. I used to work for IBM in Research Triangle Park, and at that time, like I was getting paid like $8.50. That was good, like in the early 90s. So yeah, I think if you're looking at this area, you've made a good choice. Like I said, I had to go back on my words because, at the end of the day, I didn't do the intensive research like I was supposed to do, and I'm reminiscing on how Raleigh and Durham used to be, not what it is now. Other than that, I want you to like, comment, subscribe, definitely share this video.